Khagram. Today we're joined by James Bracey. How's things going?
Yeah, mate, not too bad. How's yourself?
Yeah, all good. Just getting by in this current climate.
Yeah,
So let's go where it all started for yourself. So you're born in Bristol.
yeah.
When did you first get into the sport?
Um, really young, like maybe 4 or 5. Sort of my family homes backs onto the local cricket club, so with a brother and obvious sort of like just wanted to sort of try everything. So ended up going, football, cricket, tennis, out the back of the house, and yeah, managed to just sort of find a real appetite to play cricket. Obviously started playing competitively a little bit later, sort of 9 or 10, but was always had a bat and ball and wanted to play in some capacity.
So you said bat and ball, but what about the gloves? When did that first come into the equation?
Wow, yeah, my brother's a little bit older, so he started keeping when he was sort of 11. Always watched him a bit and did a little bit, but never sort of more of a batsman until I sort of got to 15, 16, and then try to sort of add that string really to my bow as a full-time skill.
Yeah. So you mentioned your brother, Sam. Then
Yeah,
he came through the academy system as well, didn't he? At Gloucester, he played
yeah,
first class in terms of via the university route. How much of
yeah.
an inspiration was he for you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, him playing and sort of being those few years ahead of me on the pathway, sort of learnt a lot through him. Essentially, he went to the Cardiff scheme, played some first class cricket, got a taste of it there. Obviously, experienced what it's like to play in an academy as well. So me, I mean, he would have joined the academy a bit earlier than I would have age-wise, but I feel like I had a good understanding of what it required when it came to due to sort of the experiences he had. Yeah.
And then when did your talents first get spotted? When did you first come into the academy for Gloucester?
So I played obviously youth age groups from 11. Probably signed a contract sort of 17. Played sort of the odd academy game and second team game sort of those years, and I think sort of really kicked off sort of in line with when I went to university as well. So it all sort of happened quickly from when I was sort of 18, 19. Sort of in tandem with Gloss and Loughborough.
So, any advice you could give youngsters in terms of just examples of your own personal challenges that you faced, and any tips you can perhaps give youngsters kind of wanting to follow a similar path?
Yeah, I think a lot of the young players get sort of caught up in the conventional route into the game. Getting on the academy early, developing really early, and trying to push from there. I think we see a lot more these days, especially in white ball cricket and stuff. A lot of guys blooming late and making debuts at sort of 24, 25, 27, rather than being there from 12 and making your debut at 17. It doesn't always happen like that. So, I got turned down a couple of times growing up, and it was more of a case of just volume of runs and volume of wickets, and sort of just keep on putting your name in the hat. And, it's all about taking those 1 or 2 opportunities where you get noticed. So sort of keep your chin up even through times where you're maybe not taken on straight away, but it can always happen later on. And obviously, as that's happened for me, that's been perfect for me.
So is that mental strength at a young age important then?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's something that a lot of sort of young guns are looked at and targeted early. I think that sort of comes back to bite them in the ass a little bit. So I think, yeah, developing that and playing a lot of club cricket, a lot of school cricket and that sort of stuff. I think getting into a habit of scoring big runs and learning how to do it, I think that was crucial for me.
And was there a particular coach that helped you and believed you more than another whilst you were younger?
Yeah, I think when I got sort of 16, 17, and it tied in well for me that my college coach and was also the Gloss 17s coach. He was also the Gloss sort of emerging players coach. So I think having him around across all my different sort of training and games was good. He was batsman himself, Tim Hancock. He played at Gloucester. So I think having that sort of consistency amongst all those different setups really helped me to get a better understanding. I think obviously not having too much clutter and information being chucked at me, sort of managed to build a pretty solid game around that.
So was your training as a youngster more technical based, or was it a case of you got your talent, go and express yourself, and the coaching you received was more mentorship? What was it
Yeah, I
like?
think um, yeah, I think it was more. You always obviously do your technical drills, but I feel like a lot of people break it down to such a specific like way of doing things that it overcomplicates it. So there was always like your drills in terms of hitting your balls and learning the different strokes. But I think a lot of it came from preparing yourself up mentally and just going out and finding a method to score. It's not the same for everyone. Someone like myself, I like to score square and play off my pads and wait for people to come into those areas. Other people like to hit stronger, straighter, and maybe wait for people to drop short. But yeah, I think playing a lot of games and competitive cricket was something that I sort of learned whilst doing, rather than training all the time and not playing as much. So I think from Tim especially, that mentorship side of it came in, and I was able to sort of draw on his experience and get a better idea of how I was going to make it moving forward. Definitely.
Would it be fair to say that cricket's kind of a unique sport because you're always playing, generally, whether even being club cricket as a youngster, you're playing with adults, you're playing even like people 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. years older than you. Does that
Yeah.
help in that kind of maturity? And when it comes to your specifics and your drilling, the actual game moving forward, did that help you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think going out at sort of 11 and 12 playing against adults, whether it was fourth or fifth team cricket, or as I went up playing first team cricket at 15, I think that's massive. It's a different game. It's a lot more hostile in terms of they go at you. You obviously the pace of the game. And I feel like even now, sort of when I started playing county cricket, I continued to play club cricket on a Saturday because it's a good battle of sort of working the game out. You're not going to always come up on good pitches against bowlers giving you pace on and stuff like that. You're going to come across niggly bowlers who are sort of very different to what you find in county cricket. So I think it's always good to adapt to learn how to be able to do that. So yeah, it was definitely beneficial for me playing against those people at an older age.
And then can't talk to you without mentioning Gloucester's history, recent history, the Marker Lane era, one day cricket. You must have grown up, members, etc., just talking like old coaches, talking it up, etc.
Yeah, it was always around that sort of style of cricket. I wouldn't have watched sort of that main era, which was sort of late 90s, early thousands, but sort of as I grew up, late 2000s, sort of my first real memories of it, sort of 2007 finals day when Gloucester lost in the T20 final, and the likes of sort of Craig Spearman and Chris Taylor and Hamish Marshall and people like that, sort of the brand of cricket that Gloucester always play is something that we still base ourselves around now. So we scrap, we like to play the game our way, which is slightly different to other people. And I think that's why we've always been so successful in the shorter formats.
You mentioned university, the importance of having kind of a dual path yourself.
Yeah. I think as someone who was sort of on the edge of a contract and not really nailed one down, I think it was great for me to have that extra focus. I always wanted to go to university. Sort of studying was always something that I wanted to pursue, because obviously cricket's such it's such a lack of security in professional sport. And I think that going there and having the program that we did with the people around me that I did sort of really helped me realise what it took to go back into the Gloucester environment and give what it takes. I think we had a really, really strong group at Loughborough in the first couple of years, and that was a real big driver for some of us who were all in the same position to then kick on and start performing for our counties.
Yeah, I think I was just reading up. A few have also gone on to play first-class cricket. Can you just reel a few names off?
My second year team was probably my standout, sort of the standout side we had. We had, Hassan Azad, who's now at Leicester, with Sam Evans as well. Sam Cook, who's playing in the Lord's final. He's just gone to 100 first-class wickets. Michael Burgess, who's at Warwickshire now. Robbie White, who's just signed again at Middlesex. Charlie Thurston at Northants. So we had 8, 9, 10 players who are now playing first class cricket, which for a uni side at the time was pretty special. We didn't lose many games, and I think that was a key driver for us, standing out and making sort of counties look up and say, all right, these guys in this system are good enough to be performing in first class cricket.
And then your debut followed, I think 2016,
Yeah.
against Sussex. How did was that a proud moment for yourself making your debut, and how did you see your game at that stage?
Yeah, I think it was the end of, I just going to start my second year at uni. I hadn't played for the Loughborough side that year. I hadn't been picked. We had a really strong squad, so I probably went into that game and I probably wasn't quite ready. I think I managed to score some second team runs back end of that year, but sort of coming across against a really strong attack was something I'd never really come up against. So, but I think it was good as a one-off game. I think it taught me a lot then going into the start of the next season. And when I went back to the first class cricket with the unis, start of the next season, I was much better equipped to deal with it. I think as much as at the time it seemed like I was about out of my depth, I think it gave me a lot more than I'd have got by not playing that game. So I was very grateful for that. Obviously, a debut is always special. So I think it was definitely a big stepping stone.
And then you touched on second team cricket there. Can you describe that kind of environment? Obviously, at that time, you got some youngsters like yourself trying to make it in the game. You've also got like professionals that perhaps are fighting for their contracts. Is it a hostile environment at times?
Yeah, it is at times. I think it's a strange environment. I think having compared it to first team cricket and university cricket, you don't sort of look up as a team and say like, you aren't like really proud to say I've won the second 11 championship or won the second 11 T20. You don't really think about that, which sort of highlights how much of a sort of an individual environment it can be. I remember sort of playing as a youngster. Obviously, I want to go out and score runs, but so does everyone else, and it's quite individual. You don't want to rock up and be batting at 8 or batting at 9, and then you're sort of annoyed if you are, and there's always going to be someone who's not happy. It's very strange, but I think it toughens you up, and I think a lot of people get lost in the system having played second team cricket because it's not a nice environment at times. So people tend to just realise that maybe it's not for them. So I think having come through that, I think a couple of years that I had in the twos were really tough. But once you then break through it, it gives you that determination to really take your opportunity and kick on so that you don't have to spend, too much time there.
And then 2017, career best 156. You also topped that led to you topping the averages in the championship. I think you only played like 4 games that year, but that knock in particular must have given you confidence.
Yeah, I think I'd just got the 150 for the unis, and I was sort of wanted to hit the ground running. I think you always want a run of games, and I was sort of given that back end of the season to try and prove myself. And in a top order where sort of a couple of lads were retiring and there was a couple of spots opening up, I think it was a perfect time to kick on and try and nail myself down for 2018, especially. You never really you never go out there thinking, oh, I'm going to get 100, especially when you've not played many games. So to put on a big total definitely settles you down and gives you confidence, and it definitely sort of opened me up to nailing my spot down in the side. So it was, definitely very satisfying.
Yeah, then a couple of centuries followed the following year. 2019, you again had a fruitful year. But I want to just focus in on the Lions tour that you involved in Australia. How was that as an experience? Yeah,
it was good. I mean, it was a great squad. We had a young squad, a lot of us sort of on our first tour. So, a lot of talent and a lot of sort of determined young lads. So we had a great team dynamic, and we weren't just, as you can touch on, these environments can be quite individual at times, but I think I was really sort of pleasantly surprised with how much of a good team group we had. Sort of we went there and we wanted to win. We sort of had briefs before we went, and they were like, we need to sort of learn how to win out in Australia. So that was our main focus. I think a lot of guys bought into that, and that's why we were so successful out there. It was great to play against sort of some great Australia players at some good grounds like the MCG. they're moments that not a lot of guys get to experience. So definitely remember that and cherish that going forward.
And then just before that tour, in your mind, did you see yourself as a batsman predominantly that kept? Because I asked that question because in 5 out of the 6 games, you got given the gloves.
Yeah.
So in terms of your mind, where did you kind of see things then?
Well, we got told sort of about the squads while we were out in India on spin camp. So we didn't get given the whole squads when we found out. So we were, as a group, trying to work out who was where. And I just assumed that, I'd be going as the second keeper, but as a batter. I assumed someone like, Ben Folkes or someone else would be taking the gloves. And I'd sort of be there as a batsman, but obviously as the reserve keeper as well. That was my first thoughts. But when I saw the squads and he wasn't there, and there was a couple of other young keepers sort of in each of the squads, I sort of thought, well, maybe I could push in as a keeper into one of the sides. I didn't expect to start in the white ball stuff, but to get that opportunity to bat up the order and keep was really good for sort of my development in that format. And then the red ball, I was quite happy that they sort of were impressed enough with my keeping to give me the role, I guess. So I know that I can bat in the top 3. I think they know that as well. And I think at this moment in time, that is predominantly my strength. But to know that my keeping's in a good enough place that I can take the gloves whenever it gives me good confidence, yeah.
And what was it like keeping on those bouncier, faster, quicker wickets down in Australia?
Yeah, it is nice. And I think that's where English keepers have a slight advantage, I think. I think it's so tough at times to keep over here. The Dukes obviously has a tendency to wobble more. We see a lot of foreign keepers come over here and struggle. So I think the fact that we've grown up with that and learned how to cope with that, I think going over to Australia makes it seem so much simpler. Obviously, keeping to really good bowlers is always going to be tough, but definitely allows you to relax a little bit more, and being able to stand a bit further back and the ball coming at you at nicer height is definitely nicer.
And any tips you can give to aspiring wicket keepers? Any specific drills that you do as a youngster, or maybe now even kind of your mindset that you'd like to keep?
Sort of in the last 18 months since I've been involved in the ECB setup, I think I've done a lot of work with Bruce French and Chris Reed, and it's sort of, I think they break it down into sort of 2 or 3 really simple areas that if you can nail down in your own sort of way, you can nail them. So, having good posture, having a big catching area, and just moving really quickly and really efficiently, I think is key. So just any drills that force you to stay in a good posture, especially up to the stumps, I think are good. Anytime that you can get distractions in, so like, getting someone shadow batting or putting like poles or something down so your view's blocked, I think anything like that can increase your reactions is really good. And just catching a volume of balls, I think that's what Ben Folkes does especially well. Is he's the best keeper around because he keeps the most, he practices the most, and I think he keeps in net situations a lot as well, which a lot of keepers we do growing up, but then we get a bit further up and it's sort of we lose that. Just that mindset of being in sort of a game and not expecting every ball to come, but being ready when it does is really useful.
Does your strength and conditioning have to change as well? Because obviously you're squatting up and down a lot. You mentioned agility. Does it differ in comparison to the other players? Yeah,
I think so. I think as you get up through the system, gym programs become more tailored. Fast bowlers want to be really strong, but also sort of get really powerful movements, from their lower limbs. Us as keepers, we want to do a lot of rotation, a lot of lateral movement. And it was something that, I worked with a couple of the guys in the England setup, a lot of movements in keeping positions. So I have quite a wide stance. So I try and do all my movements in that wider base, squat wider, deadlift wider rather than narrower, because it builds up strength in the areas that you're using a lot. So yeah, it's definitely down to those fine details that allow you to be in the best place out on the field.
And then you mentioned England there this year, 2020. You're involved in the squads, in the inter-squad game. The first one, I think you got 85.
Yeah.
Again, being involved in that environment, was it a surprise to you, or did you expect it? And when you did go in there, performed in that first game, it must have
Yeah.
given you a lot of confidence again.
Yeah, it's obviously been a strange summer. So I think at the start of the year, when I don't think, I wasn't expecting to be around that setup straight away. Obviously, you want to score runs throughout the summer, and then hopefully back end of the summer your name pops up and you might get an opportunity. As soon as they said it was going to be sort of 55 names initially, you're hopeful if you look at sort of the main England squad plus the Lions and that sort of thing. So you're hopeful. To get in that initial 30 was brilliant. I just sort of took it at first as, I've got 2 weeks to sort of soak up the environment as much as I can, and then sort of get ready to go back to county cricket. I wasn't really expecting to get too much else. That inter-squad game, again, I wasn't expecting to open the batting, but once I got the opportunity, it sort of showed that they had a bit of faith in me, and to deliver. I think that's what sort of has put me a bit up in the pecking order. It's just one opportunity that if you can take it, it goes a long way. So I've been lucky in that aspect. It's strange considering I've not played much cricket. To think that I'm in a better position now than I was in March is really positive.
And then can you take us into that environment, the leaders in that dressing room, etc.? Can you just give us a little insight?
Yeah, I mean, it's daunting at first. Obviously, you watch these guys on the telly, and then you're sort of chucked in with them. It's strange. Like, obviously, people like Root and Stokes and Butler stand out. They drive the sort of culture of the team. It's amazing watching them go about their business. They're just so clinical, so specific, and they just get done what they need to. It's a really friendly environment. They're all very welcoming. They're all a close-knit bunch, which was good to see. You obviously don't know what people are like out of the spotlight, so it was nice to learn that they're all good guys as well as obviously great cricketers. So yeah, it was really cool. I mean, they're all sort of open to passing on their knowledge. If you sort of ask questions, they'll give you really good answers. And I definitely learned a lot from, especially the batters. They gave us a lot of good insight.
And then has your mindset and the way you train, has it slightly changed having been in that environment, that top end elite environment?
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's made me realise that because I was there for so long training, and I trained more than I've ever done before, it sort of highlighted even more to make sure that all your practice is purposeful. You can get caught in a cycle where you're just hitting balls for hours and hours, and just sort of come out at the end of it and think, well, what have I actually learnt there? So, the likes of Jonathan Trott were really key on that. They said, go into a session with a purpose of what you're going to get out of it come the end. And when you achieve that, brilliant, you've done exactly what you've gone and set out to do. So yeah, I think I've come out with more idea of where my game's at and what I need to do in my practice to prepare me for like competition.
And what are your goals now moving forward?
I think really, so if any Test cricket does go ahead this winter, after Christmas possibly, I want to make a debut. That's key. I feel like I'm within touch and distance, being on the sidelines and doing the 12th man and that sort of stuff, and sort of preparing myself to play if someone sort of went down injured. It's scary to think that, I am that close. So Test debut would be lovely. But just to go on an away tour would be, again, another new experience, another opportunity to show people what I can do. And again, it will just give me more time to play cricket before next summer. So that's the main goal, I think. And if that sort of doesn't materialise, obviously just keep working on my game and put myself in a position to play Test cricket whenever that opportunity hopefully does come up.
And then just to end on, what's the one piece of advice that perhaps you've been given that really resonated with you that you can perhaps share for youngsters or aspiring cricketers watching this?
Yeah, I think, I was speaking to a couple of people the other day, and I was sat watching the cricket with my parents, and they were sort of chatting on Sky Sports, and it was something that I'd been told by Graham Thorpe and Chris Silverwood. They sort of highlight to the batters how, you're not, as much as guys score runs consistently, it's not a case of you're not going to always perform. And I think it's something that I'm still learning is, you know, how to deal with failure essentially. So you're going to get one or two good knocks in 5 or 6 games. It's not going to happen all the time. So I think it's figuring out a way to, when it doesn't go your way, being able to deal with that and come out the other side in the next game to still be fresh enough to then go out and perform then. So just keep enjoying it. And I think that's what drives it, is if you're enjoying your cricket, you're going to perform more consistently anyway.
Perfect, James. Really appreciate your time. Great
No
insight
problem,
into
yeah.
your career, and all the best for the winter ahead.
Thanks, mate. Cheers. Thanks very much.
The Neel Khagram Cricket Life Stories, James Bracey. Thank you.